Swap this life of shame. Swap it out for a dark gift and a power you can't begin to imagine. You just have to ask me for it. You just have to nod your beautiful head and say yes.
Hey, listeners, welcome to the show. I'm Lara,
And I'm Billy with an IE.
and we are the Vamp Cast, lurking here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. We have indeed come back out of our hibernation after the calamity that was Mayfair Witches and the incineration that was Talamasca, which I blame Louis for.
Mm-mm-mm. That would be the moment when you'd hear that sad sound on The Price is Right. Oh.
Oh. Yes, for those who don't know, Talamasca got canceled, so we shall no longer see that, even though Mayfair Witches is coming back again.
The
Well,
reason we are back today is to talk about our true first love, our true love in Anne Rice's Immortal Universe. That is Interview with the Vampire. But this season, we'll be getting a brand new interview as the show becomes the Vampire Lestat.
yay!
Have you been rereading the book?
I haven't. I have so many books to read, but I haven't been reading that one. I mean, I haven't reread that one. I think I read it maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, so
Mm,
it would be good to catch
I'm
up.
definitely gonna get the audiobook and listen to it before the show begins. Because obviously it's going to be much different. But I
Hmm.
like it when you get book equivalent canon in the show, and I like getting a refresher.
Yeah, I kind of might want to wait till after the season or this season and next season if it's going to be 2 seasons because I kind of just want to see what the show puts out there and then go remind myself of what the book is like.
Mm,
Although I usually don't forget things in books too often, so I think I
mm-mm.
have a good grasp on what all the main points are. Let's see. Well, in this episode, we're going to discuss our love for the show and why we feel more people should be watching the show. So, we've come up with like 3 or 4 things about interview up to season 2, and we might bring in some of our favorite scenes without being too spoilerish. Because if you're new to the show, we'd really like you to jump in, check out the last 2 seasons in advance because season 3 will be starting in just about 3 weeks. So, what do you think? Are you ready to jump into it, Billy?
I am, and I do have to say, if by now you haven't watched the other two seasons, what are you doing?
I know.
What are you
That's what
doing?
we're here, though. We're trying to gather more into the coven because everyone should be watching the show. It's such a great show.
Do you recall having reservations about it in the beginning in the first season?
Definitely. Definitely. With some of the changes they were making, I was very
Hmm.
skeptical.
What was your main reservation? What was your main hang up when the show first came out?
I would have to say the first hang up I had was with the race swap with Louis, and it wasn't
Mm.
because they were having a black actor play Louis, but in the book, Louis is a plantation owner, so I had no idea how they were going to have to work around that. And that's actually one of the points that I'll have. What about you?
Well, mine was the time jump. They went
Hmm.
from was it the 18th century to the early 20th century, and I don't know, I was kind of disappointed because some of the gothic themes of the novel were very much centered in the time period. And so,
Mm-hmm.
the dress was going to be very particular, the way people spoke was going to be very particular, the historical events that were going on around them was going to be very particular. But then again, I understand not wanting to show another story about that takes place in the American South where there's slaves and racial injustice and things like that.
Hmm.
But I think it's also important to remark on the fact that the time period that they did choose would have been an opportune time for a vampire. I mean, the idea of a vampire, an old world vampire coming into the new world and seeing these revolutionary changes occurring when it comes to things like race and personhood. I think that was very interesting take, and also the conversation about Louis' status as a person of color in that situation and how immortality and the power he's given through it does not change some of those societal facts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I didn't know they were going to do a time change until I actually started watching the first season. So that was a surprise to me until I actually started watching episode one. And so like the time change made sense more for the race swaps and changes they had in the casting. But I think we should get onto that when we discuss some of our points because I think
Hmm.
that's definitely one of the interesting and good parts of this. I know there's a lot of book purists who don't like the change, and like
Yes.
you, I I love a gothic romance and a gothic tale, so I
Hmm.
kind of missed having that setting. But I think we have that pretty well established with the movie, which you know I still think that the 1990s movie with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise is still really good, and it still has that real gothic element to it. But I think this has loads of other stuff that make it good as well.
I agree. And one thing about Anne that a lot of people don't know is that she also is a book purist. Every time anyone ever tried to take her material and turn it into film, she would get so angry at them. I've never heard of her actually being satisfied with what someone did with her material.
Hmm.
And I don't know how she felt about what AMC was going to do. I suspect Christopher Rice had a lot to do with that and not really Anne herself because she was a bit on the decline. But
Hmm.
um knowing that she also was a book purist, that she wanted her material to be represented properly, definitely puts into perspective how AMC took her material and turned it the way they did. But, you know, it's still a really good show, vampire show for what it is. And
Hmm.
I can't really hate them for that.
Well, what do you think? We can go back and forth, and then if you have a point that I might have as one of my points too, I'll just hop on with you. But we can go 1-2-1-2 or 1-1-2-2-3-3 about which of the points we love about this show the most. And I'll
Okay,
let you
sure.
go first.
Okay, sure. Well, obviously, Sam Reed's portrayal of Lestat is beyond amazing. Like he even subsumes Tom Cruise, who I actually thought did a great job portraying
Hmm.
Lestat.
I agree.
I actually liked Tom Cruise's portrayal, but Sam Reed, besides the fact that he does the French purr and I don't really like Nordic types. Like I don't really like Nordic type in men. When I look for a type in a guy,
Hmm.
what I find beautiful, I usually like darker hair, darker
Hmm.
complexion, things like that. But Sam Reed is gorgeous, and
Hmm.
it probably has everything to do with the fact that he plays Lestat so well that I have that opinion about him. But he's incredibly animated. He like now when I'm reading the books, I hear his voice.
Hmm.
I hear his voice when I read the novels again, and I see his face in my mind when I'm reading the novels. So
And if no
I
one's heard his voice, he has this very like low, deep timbre, and it's so
hmm
beautiful.
hmm
And I
And
love his French
then
accent. It's not too overboard, but he can get a little dramatic flair with it now and then.
and then also Tom Cruise showed a vulnerable side to Lestat from time to time in the movie, but it was kind of a flattened character.
Hmm.
He kind of flattened Lestat's character in the movie. He made him 100% narcissistic and predatory,
Yeah, I could
you
see
know.
that.
But Sam Reed definitely shows the other side of Lestat throughout the first two seasons, season one and season two. Season two was Chef's Kiss. Like I can't I still get really weepy when I watch the end of season two because of
Hmm.
the like you realize that Lestat is just an overpowered boy sometimes. He
Yeah,
is.
that's a great description of him. I mean, he's called the Brat Prince for a reason. I
Right.
mean, he's like a temperamental toddler sometimes.
Right. And his rages and his fancies and the things of that nature, they're all coming from a place of hurt and softness and insecurity, and he just unfortunately has a lot of physical power to go with it. So it makes him really destructive. But also he's, as I've described him in the past, he's above it all and beside it all, which makes him marvelous because you want to see how he's going to react to things sometimes.
Yeah. I think some of the best parts of the show are just seeing how Lestat is going to react to things. Like sometimes he'll
Hmm.
be the most petulant little, child and just say something ridiculous, and then sometimes he'll say something really deep, like "I heard your heart's dancing," and you like just feel so heartbroken for him.
Hmm.
And then sometimes he can do something so incredibly terrible that you're just like, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah, well, and then the way he expresses his grief and the way he expresses his joy and everything in between, it's so completely sensual and animated, as I said.
Hmm.
And you can't help but be moved when you see him.
He's excellent, and I think a lot of people have accurately described it as Sam being possessed by Lestat.
Hmm. I wonder if, because I'm not really big on watching interviews with the actors and stuff like that. I kind of don't like to know that they're real people.
I can
You know what I
understand
mean?
that sometimes. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to, I don't, I'm not into celebrity lives or anything like that. Like, I like to see their interviews once in a while, but I don't dive deep into their personal lives or anything like that. Because I don't know. For one, they should be able to have personal lives too. And for another, I've got enough in my own life. I don't have time to deal with
Mhm.
their drama.
Well, yes, but also I wonder if he read the books in advance. And I know some people be like, well, duh, but it's like not everyone who takes a part does that kind of preliminary work. Some actors, they just do it on the fly. They don't do that kind of research. So I wonder if he did read the books before taking the
Well,
part.
I can answer that with my number one. Are you done with yours? We can
Yeah, go
even
ahead.
circle back to it if you want.
Yeah.
My number one is that this show is truly a passion project from the lowliest like crew member to the showrunner, Roland Jones himself, because from what I've heard, Sam has read the books and he is a huge, huge fan of Anne's. And I wish that Anne had gotten a chance to see him as Lestat because I feel like she would have been happy with him.
For
But
once, yeah.
yeah. But Roland Jones, I think he was talking to AMC. He's the showrunner. He was talking to AMC about doing some different shows that they had ideas for. And then they had brought up Interview with the Vampire to him. And I think the next meeting with them, he had came to them producing an old dog-eared copy of the Vampire Lestat and showed it to him. And he said, basically that he wanted to do not just this book but all the books, like he wanted to incorporate them all. He had been a huge fan of the series, and I mean you can just tell from the quality of the show that everybody in it just loves it. And one of the main reasons is because it's got such beautiful, immaculate writing. I mean, and the writing doesn't insult the viewer,
Mm-mm.
it believes that the viewer is intelligent enough to deal with adult conversations, adult dialogue, some things that might be uncomfortable. I just think it's so good and it's so hard. I mean, I have to admit I don't watch a ton of TV, but it feels like some of the shows that I've watched, even ones that have started off really well, kind of descend into pretty cut and dry writing, and it gets
Yes.
boring and it gets formulaic, where this, I feel, at least to this point, has not been that way at all. The writing's very profound sometimes, very funny, very snappy sometimes, and a lot of it incorporates Anne's prose, so it can be very poetic and beautiful.
Hmm.
But also the casting is great. I mean, they had some interesting selections, but I think everybody from Sam, obviously, and Jacob Anderson, who
Hmm.
plays Louis, is such an incredible discovery. I mean, I saw Game of Thrones and he was good as Grey Worm, but he is amazing as Louis de Pont de Lac.
I like that he's taken Louis and t made him his own, made him his own, or
Hmm.
made it his own. Yeah. There's still, fundamental Louis in there,
Yeah, yeah.
but he's
Yeah.
completely turned Louis into almost an original character, and I kind of like that. I have a
Louis not such a sad boy.
No, no, he's got a little bit more depth now that he's got these, his racial background and things of that nature. The Louis in the novels, you kind of are like, why are you whining?
You have immortality, youth, beauty.
And wealth,
Yes.
right? Why are you whining? And now you go on Lestat's side and you're like, He's always whining. Why is he whining? I've given him literally, a gift. I've made you powerful. I've made you immortal. And now I know how to put your money to use and things like that. Why are you whining? But with Jacob Anderson's characterization, it's like, this makes sense.
Hmm.
This makes sense. And then also, he's flawed on top of it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Louis in the book had his flaws too, but I really like how they've expanded on Jacob's and the way
Hmm.
that he felt like he had responsibility for his family and then responsibility for Claudia. And if you're not a book fan and you don't know who Claudia is, she's a very important character in the show. So, um, yeah, and even like both Claudias, we did have between seasons 1 and 2 a a casting change in Claudia, who, of the main characters of the show, she's probably one of the biggest. And we went from Bailey Bass, who was very good. I thought she was an excellent Claudia. In fact, I think she even had the look for Claudia because she had a very youngish, angelic face and everything. And unfortunately, she had, I guess, some contract issues and had to be replaced. And I always have an issue when they replace an actor, especially a main actor. Like, I cannot ever feel like they're that character anymore. Or, I just don't like it when that happens. But they replaced her the next season with, oh gosh, I forgot her name. Do you remember her name?
Um,
I probably had it, but I've forgotten. But they replaced Claudia with her with this new actress, and she did an amazing job too. And I'm just constantly amazed at how well the acting is because they have great dialogue to work with. They have incredible sets. The set designs are beautiful, and they take place in New Orleans and Europe, and I guess in this new season we're going to be in Canada for some of it. Delaney Hales, I'm sorry. Yeah, she did an amazing job too. She like picked up the ball from where Bass had to
hmm
leave off, and
hmm
she did an amazing job too. And that for me is amazing because I'm just not very good at connecting with a new actor when they replace the character.
They are fundamentally different though, because I would describe Bailey Bass's portrayal of Claudia as feline, and I'd describe Hale's portrayal of Claudia as scrappy.
Hmm. Yeah. And maybe it's because Delaney Hales plays a somewhat older Claudia. So
Yeah,
by the time we see her, she's maybe had what, like 40 or 50 years of mental growth, even though her body never grows.
but see, and that's the interesting part because that could totally be canon.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know,
I've even heard some people say, well, I don't want to give away too much, but um, the one thing about this show is that you're often looking at the show through different narrators, and sometimes they can be unfaithful or unreliable narrators.
right?
So some people believe that the Bass Claudia that we get in season 1 is someone else's point of view of her, and Delaney could be someone else's point of view of who and what Claudia looked like.
Well, we could even go into a kind of conspiracy about it and maybe suggest that Bailey Bass might be Armand's portrayal of Claudia
Hmm.
that was kind of fed to Louis, and Delaney Hale could be uh, Louis's authentic point of view of Claudia.
Yeah, true. I
But
guess we should also let people know who doesn't know what Interview with the Vampire is. I mean,
right. Oh yeah.
it's been in the zeitgeist for many, many years, but it's a story of a man who does an interview with an interviewer
Right.
about his life as a vampire, basically.
Right. And everything that happened in between and the moral and the emotional rigors that came into that. And how do you paraphrase what is he like 200 years old? Louis
Who,
200?
Louis
Yeah.
or Lestat?
Well, Lestat's much older. No, Louis
Uh-huh.
would be like 150 by that time, right?
Yeah, and they've moved the timeline from, what, mid to late 1800s into the
Mhm.
all the way up into the 80s, whereas now it starts in the early 1900s or maybe just before turn of the century to modern day, like 2020, I think, is when
Hmm.
they did the first season. Yeah.
Hold on, I'm gonna do some math really quick
But yeah,
because
I
I'm
just love that there's so much perfection to this show. And I've never watched Breaking Bad, but that's what I heard from a lot of people who watch Breaking Bad is that so much care was put into every ounce of that show. Have you got your numbers yet?
hold on. Okay, so yeah, he's like in the context of the show, he's 148.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, how do you put 148 years into I don't know, they probably did that interview for about 8 to 12 hours or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, there's a few days. And we have a character in here named Daniel, who is our interviewer, played by the
yes.
awesome Eric Bogosian. And he is amazing. And I love how much agency and expansion they've done on his character as well.
He's weary and cynical and old and uh he's I guess you could describe it as a has-been and he needs like a career boost
Hmm.
and it's often remarked during the interview that he is no longer the person he was back then.
Hmm.
And that seems to be the ongoing theme of the interview, which is that what happened previously is not the same as how it is now, and that everyone's changed, including the immortals. But
Yes.
that's supposed to be obviously be the irony of it all. But yeah.
Yeah, that's another change they made from the book too. Instead of this being their first interview back in the 70s, they assumed that these two, Louis and Daniel, met back in the 70s, started doing an interview.
Mm,
It was interrupted, and now they are doing Daniel, who's kind of grappling with a I think neurological illness. I
hmm.
forgot what it was, but he's basically dying, and he Louis has invited him to come back and do a second interview with him. So I think that's pretty interesting, like what the interview would have been like when he was young and in his 20s, as opposed to now in his like late 60s or 70s.
Right, right. And then obviously the inevitable thing happens, which I find interesting because if I were a man of that age and someone offered me immortality, I'd be like David Talbot and be like, I'm too old. I'm much too old, and I don't want to be frozen in a the body of a 60 or 70-year-old man, you know? Had you
Hmm.
came to me in my mid to late 40s, I would have considered it seriously, but I don't know. I think that's why when she wrote the novels, she always made sure that whenever a person was changed, they were older, or not older, I'm sorry, younger. Because when you think about being alive forever, what version of yourself do you always want to be in?
Hmm. Yeah.
You know?
In your
But
best, you want to be in in the prime.
right, exactly. Which I guess in her mind was like your early 20s. So
According to her main vampires, I guess so.
right.
That
Although
would be
I
in
hated my
constant
20s.
confusion and annoyance.
Yeah, I was like, I hated my 20s. I don't know about that. Uh, But this definitely departs from other vampire media, which I think is very interesting because we have shows like True Blood and Buffy and Vampire Diaries. And the main thing that you find in these TV shows is, well, the fact that most of the cast is white, of course,
Hmm.
and you don't get a lot of portrayal of vampires of color.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about this show is that you get a lot more of that. And of course, in True Blood, you get some vampires of color, but they are
Hmm.
not central to the story.
Yeah.
And so I think that was probably the main challenge of this show was how to incorporate and include vampires of color. How do you get their perspective and the challenges of their existence incorporated into immortality? And I love in season one the many conversations Lestat and Louis have about that,
Hmm.
especially when Louis is still masquerading as a live man in the early 20th century and he still has business ventures. And I believe this takes place in Jim Crow South,
Mm-hmm.
if I have my history
Yeah,
correct. Right.
I
So
think so.
it's a very precarious time for a person of color. And then like there's that conversation where I think it's Louis' sister talking to his mother, and they say Lestat's different. He's a different kind of white. He's French.
I,
And
that was his sister talking to Louis because
yeah,
Louis says his sister asks, "You been hanging out with that white guy?" And he's
yeah.
like, "He's not white, he's French." And she's like, "Oh, that's a different kind of white, French white."
Exactly. But also the inclusion of these characters when they are in season two, when they're in Paris, and they make a point to describe Paris as a more liberal-minded place at that time.
Hmm.
And so I think that was a wonderful addition into the lore and
Yeah.
into the vampire, um, how would you describe it? The vampire media tapestry, or the
Hmm.
vampire media tradition. When you include vampires of color, you start talking about some really interesting aspects of living forever, because not everyone's immortal experience is going to be this romantic, aristocratic, thing.
Hmm. I mean, there is a scene where even after he's changed, Louis has to go to the opera with Lestat and pose as his valet
Hmm.
because they can't go together as not even partners, but not even as equal gentlemen,
Right,
to an opera.
right,
And they definitely can't go as equal partners because, they even get a scene where the police come and accuse them of immoral activities in their home,
right.
and because that, the gayness of the times and the societal um restrictions around that are also brought out in the show much more than they were in the movie.
It kind of takes some of the Gothic romanticism out of it, which in this case, I'm okay with.
Hmm.
Because as much as I enjoy Gothic literature, I'm also an armchair historian, and I love when history is portrayed accurately, even in a fantasy setting, especially in a fantasy setting.
Yeah, I think it brings some of the sophistication of this show comes from it is a fantasy, but it also brings in a lot of these social issues into it, especially by having cast changes with like Louis and Claudia.
Hmm. Yeah, and True Blood does talk about some of that just a little bit. It does,
It's been a
kinda.
long time since I watched True Blood. I did see the whole thing. It's just some parts of it are a blur for me.
Hmm. It does talk about it just a little bit, but not enough. They put too much
Hmm.
emphasis on the sexual aspect of the show, and then, they've got each season has its own kind of thing. There's the season with the Maenads and then the witches and all those things in between. But I think it was an important aspect that no one was really talking about. And you would be remiss not to talk about how a vampire of color
Hmm.
would experience the world and immortality. I would like to see more vampire media with vampires of color. I would like to see their perspectives. I mean, as a writer, I've always wanted to write about vampires of color, but not being completely familiar or educated in the nuances of those experiences,
Hmm.
I've been extremely hesitant to do that.
Mm.
So it would be nice for someone to make the portrayal so that way it can be seen and understood. This is probably likely how a vampire of color would exist in this phase of, or in this era in history, or in this part of the world, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, and these both True Blood and Interview with the Vampire is set in the Deep South, so
Hmm.
there's a lot more racial strain
Tension.
and
Yeah.
tension down in those areas as well.
Hmm.
Um, One of the other favorite things about this show is one of the reasons I love shows like Game of Thrones where and The Walking Dead back in its early seasons is you've got those whoa, what the fuck moments. And they always knock you over, and I'm just like, there's a scene in season one where we get an almost, to me, red wedding moment where
Mhm.
you are shocked and your jaw is on the floor and you're like, I can't believe they're doing this. And I actually love shows like that. And they're not just doing it for the shock, they're doing it as part of the story. Um, but, when a show can like really surprise me like that, I love it. And even season two, too, or yeah, season two, there's a lot of scenes in there where you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe they're going there.
Well, like my one of my woe moments for me was when Claudia had been SA'd by that American
Mm,
vampire Bruce.
hmm
That one was how how I guess when you think of an immortal and how powerful they are, the idea that they themselves could be treated like that and have that experience is very, I don't want to say bizarre, but fascinating.
hmm
Like, how do you mean you were overwhelmed by another vampire and that had happened to you?
Yeah.
You know?
Uh-huh.
So that was kind of like a what the fuck?
Yeah. I that was a scene that I didn't really like. I didn't feel like we needed it because I
Hmm.
feel like it happens way too often.
Hmm.
But someone I heard on another podcast did explain it in a way that, you know, says, this happens to, a lot of women. I know it
Right.
happens to other people too, but a lot
Right.
of women all the time. And it doesn't matter how strong you are or how capable you are. You can still be overpowered and it can happen to you. So, even though I did not like that they included that, and I still feel like it was a misstep, like one of the very few that they have, but it was still portrayed amazingly and written amazingly when she confronts she confronts Louis about it. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but she does confront Louis about it, and it was done really well. But yeah, I guess there is that point that it can happen to anyone, no matter
Including an
how
immortal.
powerful you are.
I
Hmm
think that's kind of the show's way of saying, like, just like with the racial discrimination, that immortality doesn't change any of that.
hmm
You're still subjected to it regardless. And so I guess that would probably would fall in line with that same idea that immortality changes nothing.
Yeah, there's even a scene where Louis uses his power and the strength and power that he's been given through his changing into an immortal to get retaliation on people who have wronged him, and the effects of that are pretty negative too. So it
Hmm.
shows like you can have all this power and strength and still you're up against a society where the it's hard to say it without spoiling things, but where the actions you take can have a lot of ripple effects for the
Well,
people and society around you.
right. And I would think that that's the sort of the underlying point, which is that these issues, these problems are not based off of individuals, but they're systemic.
Hmm
You're not
Yes.
fighting a person, you're fighting an
Yeah.
institution that makes people act this way and treats certain people this way and so on and so forth. And being a vampire is not going to change that.
No. No. We do get a scene where he gets some well-deserved justice, though. So
Yeah.
don't think that everything is going to be disparaging. In fact, there's a lot of humor in this
Hmm.
series that I really love, and I love that they can really deftly balance the humor with the shock and with
Right.
the drama.
And sorry, everyone, my lens is very political these days. I've been watching the news too much and
Mhm.
been going to protests and such, so I might go on soapboxes here and there. I do apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. You're speaking from your own experiences.
Yes. It's been a very trying time. But anyways, um, let's see. There obviously are a lot of differences between the movie and the novel and the show. Um, we've already discussed some of them. I think My most favorite difference, though, is the relationship between Armand and Louis. In the book, they are lovers for a time and then they split apart. And the
Hmm.
novel or in the movie, they are also lovers for a time, but they split apart. But in this one, they're lovers for a very long time.
Hmm.
He does not abandon Armand on the banks of the Seine like it's described in the novel. They stay together for a very, very long time. And it's not because they love each other. It's because Armand has been orchestrating a kind of false memory
Hmm.
for Louis. And it's the interview itself that is the catalyst for that. And I
Yeah,
love that. I love that because the person who plays Armand, and I'm actually ashamed that I can't remember his name at the moment. Um,
Assad. I know his first name is Assad. Assad Zaman.
there we go.
He's
Assad Zaman.
amazing.
He is.
Another incredible cast selection.
Right. And unlike the Armand of the novel came from Kiev and I would which I would believe would be um Ukraine now. Yes.
Hmm.
He would have originally came from the Ukraine. Ahmad's character Armand comes from Calcutta. And so I think that's very fascinating because when we learn more about Marius, we're probably going to get a lot more backstory for Armand. And I'm really interested to see how it changes from coming from the Ukraine and coming from Calcutta, because in the novels, Armand is um, human sex trafficked into Renaissance Italy. And
Uh-huh.
there's a lot that I've just got done listening to this audiobook actually very recently because when I go to the gym, I like to listen to books. But
Hmm.
there's a lot of stuff that happens in his backstory that makes him who he is today, which also I want to hear more about the satanic vampires and how he becomes a satanic vampire.
So
So
you just listened to The Vampire Armand? Is that what you just listened to?
I did,
Nice.
yes, I
Uh-huh.
did. That's probably one of my favorite expansion novels is The Vampire Armand. So,
Okay. I haven't read that one yet, so
oh no? Okay, yeah, you
no.
need to. You
I'm kind
need
of bouncing around. I
to.
was gonna go back to Tale of the Body Thief first, or hop into that one.
Well, I
But
highly
apparently
suggest
now
it.
I have to rewatch or I have to re-listen to Vampire Lestat.
It might actually, I don't know, but I kind of feel like we're gonna get some Armand backstory in this next season. So
Oh
maybe,
yeah.
reading or listening to the Vampire Armand might help you just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I got to finish the Outlander book that I'm on right now because I'm also really I'm going through that series.
I'm
So,
reading White as Snow by Kenneth Lee. Oh my God. Oh my God,
oh,
it's so good.
is it Kenneth Lee who wrote that? Gosh, I there was a book that I read as a kid called uh, oh no, never mind. I think it was like by the Sisters Grimmer, and it was all these dark takes on uh fairy tales.
Well, I
Um,
do believe she and Neil Gaiman wrote a version of Snow White where she's a vampire.
yeah, that was what it was in. I mean,
Okay.
that was one of the stories. There were like several stories in there, and that was one of them. That
I'm gonna
Snow
read
White
that
was a
next.
vampire.
Yeah, I'm gonna read
Yeah,
that
it is
next.
Tanithly. It's called Red as Blood or Tales from the Sisters Grimmer
That's
by
gonna be my
Tanith
next
Lee.
read then, because this
Oh,
one's amazing. Like,
I read
oh
that in
my
like fourth or fifth grade.
God.
It's
I'm
amazing.
I'm
The
sad that
cover's
I
amazing.
Oh yeah, well the cover art, well, because this book came from a series that was being done by this writer whose name I can't remember, but they wrote an anthology. Like every few years, they publish an anthology from all these great fantasy writers, and I remember reading some of their stuff growing up and going, "Wow, this is great." But I was getting the novel Tamlin, which is a rewrite of the story, and it's all right. I mean, they took all the fantastical elements out of it, and
Oh,
it's more like
boo.
a yeah, it's more like a this person's experience is very much like the story of Tamlin, but whatever. Anyways, so I saw that this book was also in that series, and I picked it up and I was like, "Oh, you're telling me a gothic retelling of um Snow White? You've sold me." Not only is it a gothic retelling, but it is using the Persephone and Hades myth as the
Mhm.
basis for the story.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So it's wait, it's Hades and Persephone and um, what am I thinking? It wait, it's different than the Snow White story, right? Or is it the Snow
Yes,
White story
it's
and
essentially the same,
Persephone and
but
Hades?
right. And it takes place in a world where there's like a neo-Christian religion or pseudo-Catholic religion, and then underneath it is the pseudo Greek pagan religion. And she's like
Interesting.
changed all the names of the gods and the goddesses, and they um have like these bacchanalias in the woods and stuff like that. And but on the surface, everyone's very like Christian and devout, and it's really cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Okay.
highly recommend it. Anyways, deviating from the actual topic.
Pulling us around back around again.
Right, exactly. Deviating. Um, but anyways, yeah, the story of with Louis and Armand just got much more tastier and delectable in the TV show, and I'm very happy for it
Hmm.
because it is very on brand for Armand, even in the novels and the movie, to be manipulative because he
Hmm.
definitely orchestrates the death of the vampire trope or acting troupe in the novels and the movie. And now you get a more nuanced version of that. And he does an amazing job. Holy crap, he does an amazing job.
He's so good. Everyone in this show is so good. I
Yes.
cannot emphasize that enough. Even like the smallest player. Oh, we've got a vampire in here named Sam who's in the Théâtre de Vampire. He has a very few lines, but he is amazing. He's
Hmm.
hilarious.
And apparently his character survives into the modern age as a DJ like Daft Punk, which I always thought
I
was
know.
funny.
Hilarious. He wears the helmet to cover his head and his vampiric appearance.
Hmm. Well, the guy who plays um Santiago also is in the Rings of Power series.
Uh-huh.
He plays, oh God, um, he plays the shipwright elf.
I haven't been watching that series,
Oh,
but
well, I
I
recommend it.
know.
It's really good.
Oh, when I have time to watch all these shows. I told my daughter I would watch Hannibal. She's a big Hannibal fan.
Oh yeah. Well, I just love that they're using well-known actors and not so well-known actors for the series because I
Hmm.
do recall in earlier interviews before Anne had kind of gone on her decline. She talked about how if anyone was going to portray her characters in a movie or a book or in a TV show, she wanted it to be lesser known actors, someone new, someone fresh. And
Hmm.
that at least was fulfilled.
Yeah,
And I
I
appreciate
think
that.
that's really good
Yeah, I
because
appreciate that
it's really
tremendously.
hard to what it's like the Odyssey that's coming out. It has so many huge stars in it, but I'm just gonna say, oh, that's not Telemachus. That's Tom Holland. That's
Right.
not Odysseus. That's Matt Damon.
Right. That's not Achilles, that's Elliot Page, or I think that we don't know if she's gonna play or he's gonna play Achilles or not. So, but that's the rumor. And I think Anne Hathaway is in it. She plays
Yeah, I think she
Penelope.
plays Penelope.
Yeah,
But that's the problem with having so many big stars.
right.
Okay, so I'm going to get down to my last one here, and it is like you said, the changes that were made actually make sense in this universe, but it still feels really honest to the source material. Because I feel like I don't know, even though they change, because Louis has a lot of pathos and he's really always kind of contemplating his mortality and everything, but like we said, he's not such a sad boy. He actually has some humor and he's got some agency, and he pushes back on Lestat a lot too, not just like moans and wopes, whines and mopes, but he actually will push back on him with sometimes, which I feel like at least in the books I've read, Louis doesn't do very often.
No, he just whines and mopes and just, I wish things were different, but they're not gonna be. Like, yeah, he definitely fights in this version. He's scrappier, he's more lively. I love it.
Yeah, and that's why I love him in this as well. And um, with the time change, I mean, because this is what made sense with the time change. So I told you I was worried about Jacob Anderson playing Louis because Louis's character is supposed to be a plantation owner. And how is a black actor going to be doing that? Well, what they do is and this isn't too spoilery because you find it out in the very first episode, they move the timeline from the 1800s to the turn of the century New Orleans. And Louis does have ties to his plantation owning ancestors. I believe his grandfather was white,
Yes.
and so he would be Creole, right?
Yes. And
And
he would be
so,
part of a, sorry to,
no, no, go ahead.
he would be part of a class of people in the South, which Anne was very fascinated with this class. Les Jeunes Couleurs Libres, which in English is the free people of color. It
Hmm.
is I don't know enough about this class of people, but apparently they were very um uh like what was I going to say? They were a very um interesting class of people because they kind of broke the rules, but were allowed to break the rules at the time.
Hmm.
And she writes about them in I think Cry to Heaven.
Okay.
Yeah, that novel Cry to Heaven, which I think I have on my bookshelf. Yeah, I have it on my bookshelf. I've not read it yet. I should read
Hmm.
it. But the Les Jeunes Couleurs Livres were very fascinating to her, and she liked to write about them and talk about them
Okay.
because I think Anne had a fascination with liminality because she talked about queer people, she talked about women, she talked about um, people of mixed race and things like that. I think she had a fascination with liminality, and I think that's why Les Gens Couleurs Libres were her penultimate fascination when it came to writing about character or writing characters. So to have Jacob Anderson be one of those people
Hmm.
also is um, due respect to Anne and her vision.
Yeah. And it's not like they completely took away that kind of sordid past of his. It's in
Mhm.
there, the plantation owning, the slave owning part of Louis's past is still in there. It's just not who he is right now, and he has a completely different job now, but it still is considered a somewhat dubious career,
Right.
But the interesting thing is, they bring with this time change, they bring into the story the history of Storyville, which is something I didn't know about, which was a neighborhood in New Orleans that was mostly run by people of color.
Mhm.
So, they had their own businesses, they had their own homes and everything, and it was a very short window of time that they had this, but they had their own commerce and everything. And so it
Well,
was able to express another part of New Orleans history without having to go into the whole plantation slave owning part of it.
exactly. And it gave Louis and his family some deference as people of color in the Jim Crow South at the time, which is very
Hmm.
interesting. Also, I was wrong. It's not Cry to Heaven, it's Feast of All Saints, which I don't have. I should get it though. That's the
Okay.
novel that I was referring to, Feast of All Saints.
Is Cry to Heaven about the catastrophte?
I think so, yes.
I think they're making a movie about that with like Nicholas Holt and a few other people,
Oh,
from what
wow.
I've
Okay.
heard. So
We
look it
love
up. Maybe
we
we'll
love
know.
this Anne Rice Renaissance. We love it.
But like you were saying, also they they go to Paris. We get to
Mhm.
see the Théâtre de Vampire, but it's set instead of being, what was that, late 1800s in the
Mhm.
book. We're now pushed forward to like the 1940s and post World War II France. And I think they brought in some interesting elements from that. The character of Madeline gets a
Uh,
lot of interesting growth, and the story of like a Nazi sympathizer and stuff gets kind of wrapped up into her story. So I really like that every change they made makes sense. It's not just like, well, we're trying to tick off boxes here, so we're going to cast a black man in this role and we need to tick off a box here. So, but all of the changes they made actually work with the story and enhance the story.
and I have to say that Roxanne Duran played Madeline like she took a small part and she turned it out.
Hmm.
Oh my God, she did. Her
Yeah.
and I love a red-haired vampire.
Hmm.
Always. You cannot. I love every redhead vampire I've ever seen. Rain from Blood Rain, Jessica from True Blood, even I can't remember her name, but she's in Van Helsing, one of the brides.
Yes.
Yeah, I love a red-haired vampire. So she turned
Lucy,
it
no,
out.
Lucy, right? Lucy in Dracula.
Oh, yes. And she gets turned into a vampire towards part of the movie. Yeah. But I love a red-haired vampire, but she turned it out. I was
Hmm.
when they're dying because they're being burnt by the
Hmm.
sun,
Hmm.
tears every time. There is never oh they did it. They did it so well. Season 2 was just like top tier.
Yes. And I makes me think of that beautiful and tragic scene in the movie too, where Claudia is in that jewel blue gown and
Hmm.
Madeline with her long flowing red locks in that emerald gown, and they're like
Hmm.
holding each other. It's like, oh my gosh, it's absolutely gorgeous, those colors. And then they just simply turn to ash.
It's a perfect horror. It's
I'm sorry, we're
completely
spoiling a 30-year-old book or more. What, 40-year-old book, but
like I said at the beginning
possibly
of the
50.
podcast. If you haven't seen it by now, what are you doing?
If you know the book, you're going to know that some of the main beats that happen in this story, but we just
Right.
won't spoil it all for you because we want you to watch the show if you're not watching
Yes.
it.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Now we've got a few scenes that we won't be too spoilerish about, but maybe the scenes that you thought were pretty awesome. I'll
So,
let you go, even though I'm listed first on the doc here.
I think the trial at Le Théâtre des Vampires was amazing, especially when Lestat has that moment where he talks about how he could destroy the thing he loved, the thing he was supposed to protect and keep safe, and he ruined it. And oh my God, Sam Reed's raw emotion was just so compelling, and I cry every time I watch it.
Hmm.
Like, you know how people have a song they listen to get sad and cry to? I have a
Yes.
scene in a TV show I like to watch to get sad and cry to.
So if you ever act and you need a crying moment, you go
Hmm.
to this scene.
Yes, exactly. And then conversely, later on, when they reunite during Katrina, and it's the same emotion carried on into that scene, and it's like that's amazing. That's top tier acting. That you can keep
Hmm.
the same emotion from one scene to the next. Oh my God. Where's Sam Reed's Emmy? He like deserves it. He deserves it all.
You know what? You cannot be a lazy or mediocre actor in this show because you
Mm-mm.
are just surrounded by exceptional performances.
And it could be easy for you to be overact or not overacted, but overshadowed as the
Hmm.
character in the story because all of them are amazing.
Hmm.
Even the background characters, even the ones that they added, like there was a lot of characters in the theater troupe that aren't even part of the books, but
Hmm.
even those characters are still fascinating.
And even the terrible characters like Tom Anderson
Hmm.
and the alderman,
Yeah,
like they're awful people, but their performances are so good.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Everyone put all of it into this show, and this is probably why it's surviving because it's hard to create a piece by a well-known and uh, genre creating novel book series,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like that what is it? Is it the Mac or is it the Macbeth or Hamlet that was like the disastrous play, Shakespearean play?
Like one that came out recently, or
Or in history, there's like a thing that like actors won't even say the name of the play sometimes because it can
I don't know. I'm not sure.
the Scottish play, so that would be Macbeth.
Uh-huh.
They call it the Scottish play. They don't actually call it Macbeth when they go
Oh,
to perform
really?
it. Yeah. So I feel like Interview with the Vampire or the Vampire Chronicles are like the Scottish play of novels. When you go to
Hmm.
adapt a novel into a TV series or a movie, it's kind of like disastrous. Like you could either do it really good or you could fuck it up entirely, which up until this point they've just fucked it up entirely. So to have a TV show really, yeah, they changed quite a bit, but it really is good for what it is.
Hmm. Yes. And you, the, you know, deep loving Anne Rice fan that you are, saying that it's this good has to have
Yes.
a lot of credence behind it.
I will always want a proper and accurate representation or portrayal of the source material, but I have to give credit where credit is due. I mean, come on.
Well, my one of my favorite scenes, I mean, I could literally list almost every scene in this show, but one of the scenes that is very clear in my mind is a scene where Lestat confronts Claudia on a train when she is trying to escape the house, and he confronts her on the train, and it starts off with a bit of dark humor
Mm.
as he takes a decapitated head and says, "Tickets, please," and moving the head's mouth like a puppet. So it's a
Mhm.
horror, so there is gore in it.
Mhm.
But then he sits there and has this somewhat traumatizing conversation with Claudia. And I mean, if anything, this show is about very toxic relationships
Mhm.
and a lot of fucked up things go on between them. But that scene is just incredible. I mean, Sam Reed does an incredible job at just being so fucking arrogant
Yes.
and cold, and he's just like, I don't know. That's what we've said. Like, he can go from like petty and petulant to like just cold-hearted.
Well, and then I always love the Mardi Gras scene where he's
Mm.
all gussied up on the float, and he's being grotesque and garish and all in front of everybody, not giving a
Dressed
single
as
fuck.
Marie Antoinette.
Yes, exactly. And he's kind of cross-dressing, which is also, a big no-no for the
Hmm.
time. And he's doing it so openly, and it's causing such a scandal. But it's also intriguing a lot of people.
Hmm. But they have so much money, he can do whatever he wants. So there's
Exactly.
more commentary right there. Like,
Exactly.
what do you want? You want a new boat? Okay, well, let me be the king of Mardi Gras
Exactly.
or the queen of Mardi Gras. So, what about quotes? Have you got some fun quotes?
I do. There is a conversation Louis and Lestat are having, and Louis is just being completely impossible. And Lestat says, "You are a library of confusion." And that pretty much sums up Louis. It really does
Yes.
sum him up because he doesn't know what he wants half the time. So,
Yeah, I think that phrase has made its way into some of my conversations. I don't say it too often because I don't have anyone really good to say it to, but I do love that. You are a library of confusion.
and it looks like you have a lot more quotes than I do. So why don't you go ahead?
Okay, well, there's a great scene, and I could have put this in one of my favorite scenes too, of a blowout fight between Louis and Armand. And I guess I did have it up there. Well, they do this incredible fight. And Armand gets mad at Louis, and his quote is, Lestat, 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 Lestat. The name, unuttered in our home for 23 years, said over and over again until it was pounding in my brain like a hammer. Incredible fight. And then one of Louis' slapdowns to Armand was colorless, flavorless, dull nights, dull weeks, dull months, dull as fuck, suffocation by the world's softest, beigest pillows. And like, who wrote that? That's just, it's genius because it's how you wish you could fight with someone if you really wanted to fight and give them some really good clapbacks.
Well, it's such a marriage argument too. It's such a
Hmm.
marriage thing to say. They are clearly married. They've been together forever. That is something you would say when you've been with someone for such a long time.
I know. Like when I was watching that, I was like, "Oh my God, I can relate with some of these being like just the angriest fights that you get into with your spouse or partner or something."
Because then you just start spewing vitriol and ridiculousness, and it doesn't even make sense. You don't mean any of it, but it just feels good to say because you're so angry.
Uh-huh, exactly. And I just like to throw this one in. Oh, I did have to say Brix. She is one of the ladies who works for Louis. And I can't repeat her lines because they are dirty, but they are hilarious. So if you want
Mhm.
some grown-up writing, those lines come from Brix. But I did read this last one because I think some of this comes from Anne, and I do love how poetic and beautiful some of the writing gets to be in this show, especially with some of the soliloquies that some of our actors are some of our characters, especially Lestat likes to say a lot. And this was the scene you're talking about where they're standing on the balcony. Oh, you were talking about the parade, but this is also on Mardi Gras, where he's standing on the balcony with Louis and he says, I'm going to miss this place, talking about New Orleans.
Hmm.
There's not an inch of this city that wasn't built from the fierce wilderness that surrounds it. Hurricanes, floods, fevers, the damp climate on every painted sign, every stone facade, high windows through which enameled bits of civilization glitter, silhouettes emerging, wandering out to catch a silent flash of lightning, the silky warmth of summer rain, desperately alive and desperately fragile. The hunger has me too, it seems.
Ugh. See, that is well, I know that wasn't exactly her writing, but it was writing like that that moved me when I was a teen. Like
Hmm.
that's that's what got me into her to begin with. That lyrical, tantalizing prose. That was what it was. Because it's
Hmm.
kind of like listening to a hymn or a prayer. And when you're as deeply emotional and romantic as I was growing up, that was everything. So
Hmm.
I love that they've kept that kind of writing alive in the TV show.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes when you're screenwriting, you feel like you only have so much time to get to the next scene, and you can't put that much time and embellishment into your writing. And
Hmm.
so a lot of times they're just cut short. But I just love that a lot of times they take the time to
Hmm.
put that in the writing. They take the time to like let a scene breathe and embellish it with something poetic and beautiful that may not have anything to do with the story. It's just gorgeous.
Right. And it's
And you
believable because a creature like Louis would have a moment of introspection that it's probably very antique and filigreed like that.
mhm. Yes. All right. Well, that is it. I don't know if we want to really quickly just say what our thoughts and expectations for season three are. If you are out there, there's a lot of press coming out for the season three, a lot of promotional stuff, and it's beautiful, and I love it all. But season three is going to take a hard left turn, and they're changing it from Interview with the Vampire, which was the first book in the series, to now The Vampire Lestat. And instead of hearing things from Louis or Armand's point of view, we are going to be hearing from the Brat Prince himself.
Getting to be cozy and comfortable with my favorite character is going to be so great. Also, in January, I went to Montreal just for fun, and I came back, and when I saw like, because during that time they started doing teasers for the show. When I saw that the story or the beginning of the season took place in Montreal, I was like, "Oh my God, that's so funny!"
That's great. So you'll have the feel because
Hmm.
I believe there's a scene that they gave us a little teaser scene of Lestat again standing on a balcony musing about the beauty of this city.
Well, I wonder if they shot actually in the city because sometimes they don't always do that. They just use like bits and pieces. But I will say the city of Montreal is gorgeous and
Hmm.
it's very gothic. It's full of Catholicism and it is the New Orleans of the North.
That's what I was going to say. Is it like New Orleans where it's a little, bit of Europe dumped into North America?
It is. And it's got the same layers. It is a city, built on colonialism, of course. So you've got your indigenous parts of it, and then you've got your European parts of it, and it's in Quebec, which is distinctly French or Quebecois, however specific you want to be. But when you're there, you do feel like you're in Europe. You don't feel like you're in North America.
Nice. Have you ever been to Edinburgh,
I've not.
Scotland? Okay. That needs to be next on your travel bucket list, Billy, because if you want to find a Gothic town, that is like it stepped right out of a Tim Burton movie or something. That
Mm.
entire city is very gothic and beautiful and ancient looking.
Well, I will put it on my bucket list because after going there, I kind of want to go. I'm kind of obsessed with cathedrals now because I went into Notre Dame de Montreal and it was gorgeous,
Hmm.
absolutely overwhelming. And I want to go to all the places with old cathedrals in it because I want to see them all. They're so beautiful. But anyways,
I know. Okay. We'll get back on track and just adding oh we I guess so we're looking forward to Montreal and we're looking forward to Lestat being a absolute drama queen and crashing out in every episode.
hmm
All right. Well, there's a little bit of housekeeping here before we end it and climb back into our coffins. We'd love to hear from you. So let us know if we helped convince you to watch this show. Tell us if you're already watching it and which characters you're looking forward to seeing in the future if you're a book reader or at all familiar with the series. Go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/adrenaline cinema podcast or email us at adrenalinecinema podcast@gmail.com. You can also, record a message on your phone and send it to us. We'd love to hear some voices other than our own.
Also, if you haven't already, maybe give us a subscribe and a kind review. You can find ACP on any podcast player of choice, or maybe give us a shout out on to your vampire or superhero or action movie loving friends. Do they watch shows like Daredevil Born Again, The Pit, Monarch Legacy of Monsters? The Pirate Core Entertainment Network, of which this podcast is a part of, covers all that too. Just head over to piratecoreentertainment.com to check out all the movies and shows featured on the network and music. There's some music podcasts there, which me and Laura have done.
Yes, true. Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining me today, Billy. I know it was kind of last minute, but we're going to be on a lot more regularly when season 3 starts up on June 7th.
And we hope to be joined by Danny and everyone else who...
Mark, Sam, maybe Becky, whoever's ready to jump on and share some Lestat love with us.
So we'll be very active in the near future.
Thanks, everyone. I'm Lara.
And I'm Billy with the IE.
Thanks
Thanks
for listening.
for listening.